y'all patience as we work through our technical difficulties and everything like that. My name is James Williams III, as you all probably know by now. Thank y'all for getting the tickets and pulling up and finding our way to the ninth floor in Tower 2. Today, we'll be talking about the importance of empathy in design. We will be touching on empathetic design and how circularity and ecological awareness can those three things work together to make a more sustainable future. And so we'll go ahead and crack into it now. So for those who don't like listening to people talk about themselves, there's the bio right there, because I don't like listening to people talk about themselves. But just a little bit about me. I'm from Virginia. I've been in Atlanta for about 6 years. I came out here during, right before the pandemic. I was in the mental health field. I have a very eclectic background. I've done everything from telecommunications, graphic communications, design, like I said, mental health. I even worked in a control room for several years, but I was doing that for the stock option. So primarily as it relates to this talk, I've been in a lot of different industries, and I've been able to see empathy at work in a lot of different industries, more importantly, and that's what kind of got me so passionate about incorporating empathy through my design practice, through my art practice, and seeing how that takes an impact in not only the end product, but the end user as it relates to design. So, like I said, we'll be touching on empathetic design. I want to kind of condense that down for everybody. Empathetic design is an offshoot of market research, and it's not traditional. You're actually getting into the weeds and actually seeing how somebody is engaging with a product in an environment with an experience in their natural environment. So you get to see those latent needs, things that they might not even know that they need in the moment. So you can also use things like empathy framing, where you're centering empathy in order to kind of create the environment around these the research you gather in order to gain and garner these more intrinsic needs that the user might have. And the key principle, as I love to say, is design with the user, not just for them. And that promotes this collaborative environment, which you kind of have a lot more productivity from that space. Trust me, the rest of the presentation won't be nothing but words. But the origin, empathy has been used throughout time, right? But as it relates to design, there was a lot of frustration early on in the 1900s as it relates to people focusing on functionality and not actually thinking about, once it gets into the user's hands, into the user's home, how is it going to affect the environment? And it's like, okay, well, it works. Cool, but now they want to actually see, how does this relate to my day-to-day? How does this make me feel seen? How does this make me feel heard? So moving on, the philosophy kind of was rooted in the human-centered movements around the 80s and the early 90s, and came to be coined more so around the 1990s as empathetic design. Henry Diffus, he really pushed the importance of the human factors being amplified within the design practice. So once it got, like I said, in the house, in their hands, there was this special connection between the end user and the product, because you're not just thinking about the functionality. If I cut the light on, I've cut it off. That's the function, right? That's the function of a light switch. But the ability to dim it, the ability to change the color, then you start to get into the experience and making sure that that person has a little bit of autonomy and be able to personalize their experience. Actually, I think as the sun goes down, it looks like the lights were doing a thing in here. But I just wanted to touch on, like, some key people like Dr. Patricia Moore, who is a phenomenal industrial designer. She was known for being on the forefront of the universal design philosophy, which, in my opinion, inspired me to design in a way that it didn't matter the demographic. Obviously, there's some accessibility caveats to it, but, a chair that someone that is 5-year-old can experience and have a wonderful time. And then the same thing with a 55-year-old experiencing different needs can still enjoy, this chair. And, the design firm IDEO went into a lot of advocacy of empathy within their process to make sure that you're, developing impactful products. So I'll move on to the impact, and I'll just run through these very briefly. When you're using the empathy, you have an opportunity, like I said early on, to create products that deeply resonate with the user based off the experience, and also the user experience. Like I said earlier, revealing latent needs, and it also drives inspiration in many other ways. Enhance their user satisfaction. And loyalty to the brand or whichever company it might be, and encourage inclusive design and collaboration. Therefore, you have more input not only within your team, but when you're having these interviews and your user research, you're able to gather much more insight in order to pour that into your design. And also, last but not least, promote solutions based in circularity. So now you have this, not only are you serving the user, but you're also serving the ecosystem. And it's just, I'll get into that a little bit later on, which is very important. So, all right, I'm done with all the words and everything like that. I want to get into some case studies. The first case study is the history of the Coca-Cola glass bottle. Who wants to be my Vanna White? Can I get a volunteer? My man, shout out to, come on, man. What's your name, brother? Luther? That's a bet. All right, so would you mind going around and showing everybody that bottle for me? Because I don't want to be walking around and doing everything. All right, so Luther is holding a Coca-Cola bottle from the late 1890s. That is a reproduction, because the other one was, I want to say, about $600 for a glass bottle that I will never drink out of. So I say that to say, what you see now is a demonstration of what was readily available, the techniques, the glass blowing processes at the time in the 1890s, right? And you think about it, that was over 100 years ago. So that model is with a certain way of thinking, a certain way of designing. Okay, can I have another Vanna White? Come on, Jay. All right. This model, this model was from the early 1900s, and I want to say it was in between 1900 to about 1916. And what's interesting about this bottle, thank you, brother, appreciate you. Thank you. What's interesting about the bottle that she has is that you start to see a little bit of this consideration for the experience of actually drinking it. And you can see that there's also some evolution in the processes that they were using in glass blowing. My third Vanna White. You got me, Mo? My brother, thank you. All right. So the heyday, if you will, model, which, as you can say, penetrated culture, transcended industry. Thank you. Like I said, penetrated industry in a way that at one point in time, if I saw a polar bear, I thought about Coca-Cola. And that's just a testament of the company, of the marketing team, But what I really want to point out is that what you see in this last bottle, which was from the 1950s and 60s, this bottle is ergonomical one. But what I really want to touch on is that the brief that was sent out to the glass company. I feel like a teacher, like, who is that? But yeah, so what really is impressive with with this, how y'all doing? With this model is that the design brief sent to the glass company was, in a sense, like not a blind brief, but nobody knew it was for Coca-Cola, because Coca-Cola knew that they were trying to develop something so unique, so specific to their brand, that if it dropped on the floor and broke, that somebody that's walking by, if they ever held a Coca-Cola bottle, that they knew just by the contour of the bottle that it was a Coca-Cola bottle, which jumps back to brand recognition. And the second part that I want to touch on is accessibility. If someone who was visually impaired and didn't have sight had a Coca-Cola at one point and somebody told them this is Coca-Cola, and they were able to experience the beverage, if they went into at that point in time, if they went into a shop or a corner store, they were able to explore and find this bottle and know that this is going to be a Coca-Cola bottle. And at the time, this is why this model is so ahead of its time, or was so ahead of its time, is because this is the 1950s, 60s, you know what I'm saying? So for that to have that level of accessibility and brand accessibility was by far, just like I said, transcended the industry and permeated the culture, because you had such a high level of brand accessibility and brand recognition. So that's the reason why I chose that for my first case study and touch on inclusivity in the way that we did. Next is case study 002, which is from my personal design practice. This is the Shirley. It is named after my grandmothers. It was an homage to the two people who basically gave my rite of passage as a creative spirit. The beautiful thing about designing something is the stories that you can pull some of that data from, you know? And when I told my grandmothers that I was going to start designing furniture, this is my mom's mom on the right. So she was like, tough love, you know, side of the boards. And she was like, just make sure I can get out of the damn thing. And my dad's mom on the left side, sweet Southern Belle, you could burn the house down and it was okay. And she was just, just ecstatic to see that, and she was supportive. So what came from that was, wanted to like juxtapose these two energies. And just from that alone, the data that I was trying to gather as it relates to how they get out of the chair, what type of materials I need to develop the chair in so that it provides a level of support, so they're not, because it doesn't have any arms on the chair. And so what I wanted to do was make sure that I was, one, serving a wide demographic. Like I said, it's fun. It doesn't have any hard lines. It makes you want to touch it. And, kids love it. Kids love it. But from the standpoint of an elder sitting down, I wanted to promote proper lumbar support, which everybody needs proper lumbar support. It doesn't matter if you're 5 or 55, like I said. And same thing with V2. V2 was an exploration of material, but also how it relates to once the user is actually sitting in it, which was inspired by once my mom's mom had transitioned, the last thing that I could remember was a hug from her. And so going into designing this, I wanted to maintain the support, but also I wanted to create that feeling of a warm, soft hug. And so what I did was I utilized multiple density grades of foam in order to create this unified experience. So what you get to do is, from empathy framing, figuring out what the end user needs and then be able to take those stories and be able to infuse that into it and be able to tell these really, really genuine stories that can penetrate aesthetic, it touches at a deeper core. And then from there, it increases, your user satisfaction and loyalty. And I was blessed that, these projects were an homage to my grandmother's, but V1 was the actual model that gained me international recognition. So I'm very grateful for these. These will never leave my personal collection. But I wanted to touch on these because of the emotional resonance that goes beyond just the design, beyond the research, the user research that goes into it. Everybody in here has a family member that has inspired them to do something, and that alone can take you to the moon and back. So I wanted to feature the Shirley as my case study for emotional resonance, because everybody has something that they can share. And I think through design and through empathy, we can share it in a very authentic way. Next, the case study 003 is the OXO Good Grips. And I don't know how many people have ever peeled a potato before. Okay, all right, cool. So we be cooking. All right, okay. So at the time, I don't know if anybody knows the story behind the Good Grips vegetable peeler, but it came from observing a loved one in the kitchen struggling to grip this peeler. They had arthritis, and essentially just by, like I said, the iterative journey mapping, what you see with the first one, it was made out of metal, and it doesn't have multiple sides. It really you just have to hold on to it while that thing is spinning. You move on to the second one, you have a firm grip, which is better, yes, but you got to think about certain hand conditions that people have. So moving on from that second one to the next two, you start to see a little bit more form and contour in the grip of it, because it needs to accommodate a wide range of hands and hand conditions. And then moving on from the fourth one to the next three, you see these grips at the top. They give you much more stability, so it's not slipping out of your hands and stuff like that. So this started from a very, if you would say, like a very sentimental place. Somebody, just really wanted to solve a problem, in a very sentimental way. But what you're able to do from journey mapping is really dive into what are the steps that somebody has to do to go through in order to carry out this task. And then from there, you're able to mine, okay, these are the pain points to solve the problems. And then from that, you are able to extend product lines, and if it's an experience that you're designing, you're able to build that out and create an iteration of something, whether that's, I started hosting these drawing sessions, and the drawing sessions was meant to be these moments of wellness and practice. But what I realized is that what I designed was, it was so viable that I could actually take the same product, if you will, the experience, and I could infuse, let's just say, something about identity for a child and do something for the youth. I can take something about identity and do something for elders. I can do something for some, group of people around like 30 years old. But the same product itself, as I continue to iterate, they all had the same essence in it and was able to solve similar problems from different perspectives. So I believe in iteration leads to success. And in this case, with this prototype, they went on to start an entire company based off these products. So now that we talked enough about us, beyond human-centered design, and like I said early on, that came about around the 60s or 70s and came into prominence around the 80s. The thing about human-centered design is that it kind of forgets everything else, and the empathy stops at our experience. And as we can see just outside right now, there's green spaces. If we look out through the window, there's plenty of green spaces, right? in certain cities that just, that's like New York, you just don't have that. You have to go to the park. So I believe that empathy definitely should not stop at the human experience. Sometimes we get caught up in our own experience, but when we're designing for all, and I also like to redefine what us is every living organism on this planet, including animals, including trees, including the rivers that's flowing, all of that, because we have to share the same space. And so when we're designing with that in mind, we create these holistic products, holistic experiences that have a bigger impact beyond the human experience. And so the key principle from this slide would be design is not just about serving humans, it's about serving the ecosystem. And the ecosystem could be the natural ecosystem. It could be an ecosystem of people. It doesn't matter. It's just you got to think about this holistic view, because you're always going to leave someone out if you just kind of silo in the research, silo in the data. And that's the beautiful thing about empathetic design. It removes the bias out of it because you're right there, you're in it, you're gathering the raw data. So another avocation of, I think I just made that up, avocation. Yeah, I think I just made it up. It sounded good though. But yeah, just advocating for empathetic design and expanding on what that might look like beyond just the surface layer of, just being empathetic within your design practice. There actually can be a practice that can be structured around it. And this is a diagram that was fun but very time consuming to do, because what I wanted to do is draw connections how empathetic design, circularity, and ecological awareness can tie into each other in order to make a much more equitable and sustainable future. And I wonder if this thing got the little, okay, it doesn't. So if you look at empathetic design, that sphere, you have different things like I talked about: user research, emotional connection, accessibility, inclusivity. On the other side, you have circularity, reusing, waste reduction, product life cycles, recycling, all things that we're familiar with, right? Ecological awareness, conservation efforts, the ecological footprint, eco-friendly materials. We're all aware of that, right? But the beautiful thing is these overlap spaces where we're able to see when we're able to take a certain sphere and be able to look at how that overlaps with another one in a very, it provides a very deep perspective. For instance, empathetic design and the overlap of circularity will help solutions enter our practice, come from our practice where the needs are met all while providing this sustainable product in order to engage with and actually take away from the footprint, which allows, in my opinion, the best type of products there can be, because now you're on all cylinders, you're reducing the waste, you're providing something that they can engage with, and then you're educating on a certain level as well. Circularity and the ecological awareness. From that sustainable practice come that reduce the environmental impact and are restorative. And from that perspective, I think that, just like I said, the green spaces, yes, they have their function, but also there is an ecosystem right there that has to be maintained, and it's actually maintaining itself. Yes, we want to make it, manicure and all the things like that. That's just the human in us. But that is actually self-sustainable right there because of how circular that system is. And the overlap with empathetic design and ecological awareness is a deeper connection between the users and sustainable products, promoting mindful consumption. And this one is my favorite for the simple fact that if you can show somebody that they can get the same, what's up, brother? That they can get the same experience by utilizing something that is going to reduce the footprint, I think that's a win. Would you agree? Okay. I think that'll be a win because now you have people thinking about their consumption. You have people thinking about the practices that they hold in their home. And then also you just gave them an amazing design. And that is going to penetrate a timeless caveats that come with trying to recreate the wheel. It's like, no, you can literally just make something better. You don't have to recreate the wheel. You could just be more mindful of the materials you're using, be more mindful of the practices that you're using, and be more mindful of the subject, what I like to say, instead of user, because you could design for, a tree system. You can design for, a bridge and making sure that it's actually generating energy as water is actually flowing through, like several bridges do, but not a lot of light is shined on that. So, like I said, it was very fun to put together, but at the end of the day, I just wanted to put something more tactile in front of you all after showing you the case studies that I showed you earlier, because we can get kind of lodged up into our own experience, and that's going to leave, like I said before, leave a lot of subjects, if you will, left out. So with saying that, case study 004 is circular solutions. And this one is actually close to home because I didn't know that this project was going on. It's the Georgia Department of Natural Resources Reef Project. They take decommissioned martyr cars, and they actually submerge them into the water and actually provide thriving habitats for fish to actually, especially some endangered species, to kind of recoup and provide protection from larger fish and everything. And I'll finish off with case study 005, ecocentric solutions that serve just about everybody involved, humans, animals, and the ecosystem. If you ever seen a water-free urinal system, there might be some, touchy points about sanitation, but I will say it is a very innovative design, just for the simple fact that, one, it's less mechanical pieces that are in comparison with your traditional one, and which means it has a longer product cycle. It doesn't take much for the user to repair. There is no water system, so it's reducing the footprint in that respect. And this, in my opinion, it is a beautiful design, even though it is a urinal. But moving on from the urinal, and I guess kind of where I put a toothbrush beside a urinal, but let's just not worry about that. The bamboo toothbrush, which I love. When I travel, I take a bamboo toothbrush. When I'm at home, I have a mechanical one, electric one. But the thing is, I am using this with the mindset of using something that's going to have a longer product cycle, using something that isn't going to end up in a landfill. And if anybody has ever known the stats of toothbrushes that hit the landfill, it's a ridiculous number. It's like a scary number, actually. But I believe in, these ecocentric, like I said, solutions that you could, if you wanted, you could just throw the toothbrush. I'm not saying go litter or anything like that, but you could literally throw the toothbrush and it'll be okay. It's going to decay. So I enjoy that design. And then moving over to the solar-powered chargers, which is definitely a newer product in the grand scheme of things. But I really enjoy the thought of less energy, portable energy, and just sustainable energy at that. So I really thought it was a good idea to try and incorporate something that touches each sector in a way, serving humans, serving the planet, and also in respect to animals. So with that being said, this is my presentation on empathetic design and empathy in design. My name is James Williams III, and I appreciate y'all pulling up tonight. I'll turn it over to Brandon.